Watching the big picture with me, Frank Pereira. Millions of children around the world are at an increased risk of online sexual exploitation, violence, and cyberbullying as they spend more time on virtual platforms due to the closing of schools and COVID-19 lockdowns has ensured that more children are online. More than 1.5 billion children and young people have been affected by the closing of schools worldwide. Spending more time on virtual platforms can leave children vulnerable to online sexual exploitation and grooming as predators look to exploit the COVID-19 pandemic. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze how to safeguard against online predators. Joining me on the program today are Dr. B.R. Gangadhar, Director, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore; Niharika Chopra, Policy Director, Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation; and Jitin Jain, Cyber Security Analyst. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, Niharika, let me begin the program with you. Let's first try and understand and try and analyze how susceptible are children to online predators. I believe that your foundation has done a study on this as well. And why are children such easy targets?
Right. Hi, Frank. Thank you for having me here, and hello to all the panelists. The study you're referring to is by the India Child Protection Fund. It has brought into mainstream the huge risk that children are at for child pornography. Now that is both for children who are viewing child pornography, of course, but the research points out the demand for child pornography online. They conducted a research in December 2019 to find that within a period of 1 month, 5 million searches for child pornography were conducted. This includes violent terms of child sex related videos, which I will not go into. It's quite disturbing. But what it also brings into light is how it is a problem within the entire country. There are 100 cities where this was conducted, and it is widespread. There is data from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is the largest clearinghouse of such images in the world, which says that between 1998 and 2017 alone, 3.9 million searches of child pornography were done in India, which is a matter of national shame, in fact, for us, which brings into light that India is the largest consumer of child pornography in the world. And that is how susceptible our children are. I think it is an underrated risk. I think it is in our homes, of course, as you say, as the pandemic has unleashed on us within homes, a lot of pornography platforms such as Pornhub, which is the most popular pornography platform, has made its premium content free, which basically has seen that since the pandemic there has been a 95% surge in pornography viewership, and a large percentage, I would say 50% of that, of pornography in general, could be attributed to child. The numbers are scary, and the vulnerability of children.
Okay, all right. The numbers are scary, and the children especially are vulnerable, is what you're suggesting. Let me take what you're putting forward to Dr. Gangadhar now. Dr. Gangadhar, how would you categorize child porn addicts and pedophiles? Is it a mental problem? What is it really, and how can it be addressed?
Yeah, there are 2-3 issues here. One, of course, a generic one, that it should not happen. That's one part of it. Second, a small proportion could well have this as a form of either an obsession or a dependence. This category of people who are either distressed or not distressed. Distressed that, I keep poaching into all these porn sites, etc. I'm not able to hold my control on this. They genuinely need help, and then they come and take help. And the other group of people are the ones who want this to be controlled, but they are unable to make this happen. So together, this number of those people whom we may want to call it as illness is a very minuscule number. I don't want this phenomenon to be seen as an illness at this point of time. Although it has been described, more people who are offenders will take umbrage under this category. Oh, look, this is an illness. I don't want this to happen. For the time being, most are not ill. Most are the ones who seek pleasure, and they keep doing it. And do all devious means to seek pleasure. And this is something that has to be controlled by law enforcement. And I don't think it's a good thing to say that illness is responsible for this behavior. This is number one. The second thing is I want to talk about gadget addiction as another agenda. Leave porn addiction is one part of it. Gadget addiction. People, more and more people are getting addicted to gadgets such as cell phone or internet. This is getting, in fact, even the international professional bodies are recognizing this as to have become an illness. Again, let me caution, gadget addiction of a non-criminal nature can keep happening. But once it comes under the criminal nature, to give a label of an addiction and an illness would be actually a disservice to those people who are getting the suffering because of this so-called addicted behavior. So gadget addiction is there. Good number of them are not poor. People are addicted for various other things, starting from gambling to watching movies to 100 other things. A proportion of them, of course, are into porn. And even among the porn, a very small proportion into this pedophilic porn. Pedophilia is, of course, there is no question at all, legally is a culpable offense. But what I'm trying to tell you is gadget addiction is something that has come to stay for various reasons. And to say that whether this lockdown increased people to become more addicts into gadgets is a far-fetched question. We don't have data at this point of time. Time and again, most advisories and most professional people who spoke about how to manage your time during this lockdown period have insisted that a lot of healthier options are there. TV, internet is not just the only option. But mind you, TV, internet has actually made people become socially closer, although we use the word socially distant to keep ourselves away from this infection. But this actually has helped people to come closer. But should this be the only means is an issue which has always been debated. And I believe there are other means to have social connection.
Okay, all right. Taking the discussion forward now, Jitin Jain, how do we safeguard children against online predators?
See, we would have had a different set of answers if this question was asked maybe a couple of months ago. On your show, we have discussed certain, issues like what should be the right age of introducing mobile phone and gadgets to the children. How should a parent supervise the children if they're misusing gadgets? How can, parents ensure that children don't fall prey to online harm like child bullying or harassment? But the problem with the lockdown is that a huge amount of population has been now forcefully, rather I would say we have no choice, has been forced to get themselves introduced to technology without any basic digital hygiene or digital awareness. Most of the schools across the world are now conducting classes on Zoom. Now, this is not happening for the university or school children. This is also happening for, small children in the age bracket of 6 to 12, who are the most vulnerable category. Now, parents are left with no other choice. And remember, once you introduce technology and gadgets to them, even for this so-called online classrooms, it is going to stay forever. They will get addicted. So as Sir rightly said that, since look at the figure of Zoom, which is now popularly being used, their user base last year was 10 million. And in the beginning of this very year, now they've got a user base of 200 million. So you're seeing a 20-fold increase of sudden dependence and then, once after the classroom, you have to give them laptops for homework and, the other thing you've given. Now, in that segment, there is a risk not only for this, child bullying and abuse, there is also a very accepted risk of, a very well-known risk of unwarranted exposure in the form of advertisements which come on those websites. So even if a person is not, visiting the porn website, a lot of ads pops up, and you will be surprised to know, even if you're watching simple YouTube videos, kind of ads which are popping up are so shameful that you can't watch them with the family. They are literally profane of porn sites. So I think government also has to look into that. While we, Ministry of Education, ask people and schools to shift to the online platform, first and the foremost thing we have to do is write to Google and Facebook, which are dominating 90% of the advertisement markets on the website platforms, to temporarily block all the profane ads for the next 2 months. I think that has to be done immediately. Rest of other issues like, child porn predators, we can deal with them. But this problem of unwarranted exposure, unsafe exposure of children to the online world, and then just leaving them on their own without any defense or education, I think this will become the biggest risk in the months to come.
Okay, let's look at another aspect now, Niharika. Another aspect that I want to take forward with you is, let's not forget that, as Jitin has just rightly pointed out, there are more children who are going to be online now. Forget about the children in the younger age bracket, but teens who are generally curious in that particular stage of their lives. They are online. There is very less parental guidance or parental control in a country like India. They could also be sharing with each other, when no one is looking, some pornographic content. Now that too needs to be looked at, and that too is an issue, don't you think?
Absolutely, Frank. It is an issue, and I would like to think that even though technology is here to stay, its misuse isn't. It will be in different degrees, but I would like to believe that children can be protected from the scourge of the internet. When you're talking about children exchanging content over the internet, of course, it's unstoppable. You cannot prevent children from using the internet. It has its benefits. I think what's important, one, is to speak to your child. It's important to understand the almost this parallel universe that they're living in, and the kind of content that they're viewing and their thoughts about it. That's one step. But also to understand that it is not just, it may be like children may be engaging in sexting or sharing of content which they're curious about, but it is a more organized crime from that nature. It speaks of trafficking, there's extortion, there is the use of gaming platforms, social media platforms, and there's very minimal accountability of these platforms. And of course, I agree with Jitain on saying that these internet service providers and the intermediaries need to be held accountable and made responsible for bringing down the content as soon as it's identified, having a proactive identification mechanism, and also cooperating with law enforcement in the sharing of evidence and for investigation purposes. I think they have a key role to play, because the burden can't be placed on the child or even the parent. It has to be those who are providing the service who have to take responsibility.
Let me take what you're saying forward with Dr. Gangadhar now. Dr. Gangadhar, let's talk about this issue and talk about children as such. Children being exposed to pornography, or children being preyed upon and falling prey to online predators. How much of an impact does it have later on in their lives? How much of a mental issue is it, do you think?
There are two issues here. Those who fall predators, good number of them have had some such sexual exploitation outside the purview of internet. Some adult in the family or somewhere in the neighborhood would have had some mischief with them, and that stress is not well held or sorted out by the family members. Neither the elders in the family or the teachers would have heard them well and make their emotions lower on that issue. A lot of them they wouldn't even have divulged. So this is something that is burning in their mind. And some adult, who is coming as a predator will broach these sensitive areas, and they would feel like somebody is hearing me, and they'll start narrating those things. So they will, over a course of time, start becoming emotionally dependent on the other person and start narrating a lot of personal details. And it goes on and on and on. This is number one. This is something that we need to be aware. The family members need to take into account the fact that if my child has had some stressful thing in the past, which could be a risk factor for this child to be predated by somebody else. This is number one. So they have to be doubly careful. The second issue is all childhood-related experiences which are very stressful, very traumatic, will have a longer lasting effect. And it is known that many psychiatric illnesses have had one of these as a contributory factor to adult psychiatric illnesses. These two things we know it quite well. The third point, which I'm sure all the internet service providers might have considered this, might not have been able to implement this. That is, if a child has registered as a internet user for purpose of school homework or school teaching, etc., or she wants to do a project for which she wants to browse the net, etc., etc. When a child has been registered up to a period of up to 18 years, as we know, there should be a parallel registration of the either mother or father's website or email address as well. All these service providers, they should be able to give a log of what all things that the child has browsed to the parents. Otherwise, the child has registered, the father himself would have registered the child for an internet site to look at the project work, and after that he would have forgotten, and the mother would have forgotten. But if such browsing has been happening by the child, some automatic alerting to the parents is a useful idea. I'm very certain world over people would have thought of this, and I don't know whether we have implemented this. And as it was rightly said, in this next 2-3 months, when you are allowing children to have a lot of internet access for school, education, etc., we need to deliberately cut off some of the sites and channels, even if it is allowed for adult people.
Okay, interesting there. Let me take that particular point forward with you, Jitin. Dr. Gangadhar there pointing out the use of technology maybe, at some level, as you yourself rightly pointed out in in your opening remarks about how this could be a new norm going forward, considering that all this could take a while before it ends. How big a role can technology play in trying to deal with technological crimes?
Well, I mean, technology would have a role to play, but you have to choose that who will use technology. So one choice is with the online platforms like Facebook, Google, and the internet service provider to some sort of censor this profane content or control this profane content, or to build a necessary mechanism in place, especially child logs. For example, YouTube is offering child protection. Netflix has a child-specific column so that they are not exposed to the unwarranted profane things. A second option is obviously, which many people are suggesting, is to have some sort of surveillance in place on children. You install monitoring software on mobile phones and laptops. I personally do not agree with that, because once you open that door, this will break away all the barriers which normally a child and parent has. There are certain things which are very personal, and I think all of us have grown doing certain things, making mistakes and learning from our mistakes. But if that very barrier is broken, if that very privacy is gone, I think the relationship between parents and children will change forever. So I'm not I'm not in favor of deploying child monitoring software, but rather some sort of child locks could be deployed where you are able to ensure that only the content, or rather the whitelisted content, are exposed to the children, rather than the whole spectrum of content which is available online. So I think instead of monitoring, maybe the filtered content could be made available to the children.
Okay, filtered content probably could be made available to the children. That's something that we can see in the near future, is what you're suggesting. Time now to get concluding remarks from all my guests, starting first with you, Niharika. With the best way forward and on the role of the parents and parental control in dealing with all of this.
I think the entire community and society needs to come together to support families and parents. The government, I think, should run a very intensive online campaign on what child pornography is, what its effects are, how to identify and report it. These are all very important aspects. And whenever a parent understands that a child may be seeing some content or maybe being used for some content, they need to be able to speak to the child, but report it. And that is the only way deterrence can come about.
Okay, all right. Dr. Gangadhar, what's the best way forward?
Best way forward is to facilitate more person-to-person interaction with the family members. I'm talking of in general gadget addiction, which is we are advising a lot of family members. The mother should be liked more than the TV screen to the child. How we can help that possible, how much of interaction, quality time spent with the kids is an issue which is a separate debate. I think that is the central issue.
And since you're director of NIMANS, I must ask you this question. As far as this particular issue is concerned, do you believe that at some level, you need better family coaches probably, or some kind of counseling for the parents and the children as a whole?
Yeah, actually, we have set up what is called as a clinic, a separate clinic for both children and adults who have become dependent on gadget. We call it as safe and healthy use of technology. That is the name of the clinic. We call it as a shut clinic. You shut all the screens. Although the expansion is safe and healthy use of technology, and more people are availing this. We're going to be preparing many more professionals to be able to address this issue. We're going to bring some guidelines. This has been going on for the last 2 or 3 years with more data having accumulated. Now, we would probably be rolling out some guidelines to teachers, to parents, and to all the internet service providers. Particularly from our social context of view, liberty versus some restrictions, how to trade off, where are we standing, international laws versus Indian laws, we are working on those protocols.
So basically, you're suggesting that yes, Jitin, I'll come back to you. I have another question for you, Dr. Gangadhar. But Jitin, yes, go ahead.
I think if Nimas were to run a digital de-addiction clinic, de-addiction from gadgets, I think 50% of Indian population will land up at his door.
Yeah, so basically, Dr. Gangadhar, are you saying that this is a reversible trend? But how difficult is it to get rid of this addiction, do you think? Is it as bad as drug or alcohol addiction, or is it worse, or is there anything to suggest anything like that?
Right now, the impact of it right now, we have not had a good measure right now. We are realizing for the last 5-6 years, this is posing a problem. We are trying to find a solution. Maybe as a public health level, we need to bring in little more professional advisories and professional manuals as to how to tackle this. We, being a mental health institute, we are seeing it from a mental illness point of view and mental wellness point of view. But there could be many other factors which are operating. Market, politicians, various other groups which want to have this thing to be going on. So there are multiple factors which are influencing this. We are trying to see how best we can come up with a capsule of plan to mitigate this problem.
Okay, all right. And Jitin Jain, close the show for us with your concluding remarks on the best way forward, really, as far as dealing with the pedophilia is concerned.
I think one good idea would be before talking these online classes and technology to children, the parents must understand and educate children about talking to them if they face any such online harm. Reporting it to the police. Make sure that it doesn't go unnoticed, unreported. Second, I think for many of us who are going to be online for the first time in their lives, using these online classes, I think one good idea for all the parents would be to put the laptops and these mobile gadgets in the public space of the home, so that while you are busy in other household activities, if the children is using mobile phone or laptops or tablets, at least you can keep an eye on them, and also ensure that the screen is always visible to every member of family when a child is using it.
All right. Absolutely. All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me.